Welcome back, everybody, to the Marketing Rules podcast. It's my pleasure to welcome on board Si Bor. Si, we've known each other for a little while now. I'm really interested in the kind of stuff that you're doing with some recruitment agencies. For anybody who's listening who hasn't come across you or know what Embedded Ops do, maybe you could give us a little bit about your background, how you started Embedded Ops, and the kind of things that you do now.
Yeah, sure. Sounds good. Thanks for having me, first of all. Interesting story about how I got started with Embedded Ops. Much like a lot of the service providers in the space at the moment, I started out as a recruiter, contract tech in the old school days when you weren't allowed to sit down and all that sort of stuff until you'd pulled enough leads and so on and so forth. Baptism of fire, I think, as far as first jobs go. I then moved into an operational role. Worked at a company where the back office was pretty poor, contractors weren't getting paid, that affects me. So I decided to teach myself invoice discounting, factoring, timesheet processes, so on and so forth. And then from there, I kind of moved on upwards through the ladder. I went to Ops Director. Most recently, I was COO of Campbell North, which is a fintech headhunting firm. Last year, the market, like everyone keeps talking about last year in the market, right? It's just constantly talked about. But I promise you, I think about 3 weeks into January, I was like, gosh, we're in for a tough one here. And I'd recently taken the full-time gig of COO. And all I kept thinking was, I've got 2 kids at home. Market's falling out. I've just taken a big role. Luckily, there was some good work to be done there, and I must have been doing okay because they kept me. But last year, the amount of phone calls I was getting from folks just like, hey, how do I do this reporting? Hey, can I show you some numbers? What do you think of this? What do you think about this new bit of software that's coming out? Because obviously last year, it was as if the RegTech suppliers didn't know that no one had any money and still kept on releasing stuff. So I was getting all these phone calls from like friends, people I've worked with before, old bosses, and just networks that I'm in. I mean, I go to so many networking events, I'm in a million WhatsApp group chats, etc. And then I was like, there's got to be a business in this. And actually, I was enjoying answering people's questions and queries from WhatsApp groups more than I was my day job, in all honesty. It was a permanent business. It's quite limited in terms of operationally how exciting it can be. And that's when I launched Embedded Ops. It was registered in June. I left the full-time gig in October. I'm working with a handful of clients at the moment. It's going all right so far. Enjoying it.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. And you're in that kind of, I suppose that kind of grey area, where people aren't really sure what ops does, right? What ops directors do. It is one of those kind of things. Every business seems to have one. Every business who's mature and kind of like grown up has one. But I think it's one of those areas that's like, well, what is it they do? And you're on the cutting edge of this, right? So maybe we can start with, right, how do you class what you do? How is it? What does the kind of like, what are the things that you're in charge of? What are the things you enjoy doing? What are the kind of processes that you look after? So let's kind of define that first.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. I think when it comes to just operations within a recruitment agency setting in general, I have like 3 pillars that I believe you should do it by. And it's a mindset piece around enabling recruiters to make more placement, operate, which is you're the operator of processes and systems. You should be the subject matter expert. And then improve, which is a cultural thing, but it actually starts with having a platform or a regular cadence meeting where you can discuss how to improve or reflect. But me specifically, I do lots of project management around recruitment technology. I actually start with helping folks define their business processes so that we can then go and do vendor selections. And that way you're not getting demoed all the shiny bells and whistles. You're actually seeing a system versus what you need it to do. So I do that as a project piece of work. I'm also retained by clients on sort of an advisory capacity. Like, I don't think I'm quite old enough, and I never worked at S3, so I don't think I could be a non-exec director, but I'm also not maybe just an ops manager. I sit right in the middle there, like a fractional ops director, fractional COO capacity. I want to get involved. I don't want to just get on calls and, advise and then go away. I'm up for really getting into the weeds about operational challenges and initiatives. That includes, honestly, process mapping, improving return on investment from tech, improving recruiter performances, or coming up with a strategy for performance management. It's actually like staggering how many folks have quite poor performance management ideas and structures and processes. So even that's become quite a big part of what I'm doing with a handful of agencies at the moment.
Mhm. So let's say a business comes to you, they're struggling with all this. Where do you start, right? What's the kind of, this might be specifically about how you kind of work with businesses, but this might be slightly more kind of generic. They want to kind of they want their operations to be more process driven. Let's go there.
Yeah, nice. I mean, I've very recently been in to see an agency, 25 headcount, banking, financial, and the owner's fantastic. He really wants a best in class ops team, but it's kind of like, right, where are we at? What, how do you benchmark yourself? So I actually ran a 3-hour workshop. Probably should have charged for it, but I went in for 3 hours to really get under the hood and understand how they structure it, who's responsible for what. Quite a lot of the time, when you're setting up an ops function, you don't necessarily need to focus on the job titles because it doesn't really matter what your job title is. It's just what processes and activities do you have ownership over. So like who collects the data for your one-to-ones every single month? Like whose job is that? We just need to know who's sitting in on these meetings, so on and so forth. So more often than not, I have introductory discovery type meetings, depending on the size of the agency. They're sometimes 30 minutes and it's very quick to work out where the gaps are. Other times it needs a 3-hour workshop because there is so much to pick apart, like who's doing what, what's the actual aim here, where are the bottlenecks, etc.
Yeah. And is there a size of business that this is more relevant to than others? So obviously a lot of people who are listening today are going to be maybe SME size or smaller recruitment businesses. Is this still relevant to them as well, or is it something for these kind of 20, 30 plus businesses?
Actually, strangely, the most interest and demand that I get in terms of inbound is from agencies that are all sub 20. More often than not, there's one ops person wearing many hats doing all of those tasks. They might be called an office manager or an ops exec or whatever it might be. So I would say that the general trend I've noticed is sub 20. The project stuff seems to kick in for the ones that are 20 plus who have lots of operations to manage themselves, and actually the actual workload of a project tips them over, or they need the expertise to help make it successful. But no, I would encourage, I speak to 2, 3, 4 person businesses and I talk to them about enable, operate and improve. And the reason for it is they might be defining a sales process, or they might be defining a CRM process, or how to log this, or how to a placement process. And actually, if they're not thinking about the core principles behind, actually, is this scalable? Can this be expanded? Can other people come and plug into this? Then it's going to fall down as soon as they grow. But yeah, I think if they've got an ops person, it's great because you can coach and mentor, and actually you can leave behind a little bit of, I call it, it's like train the trainer type stuff. You're leaving behind a bit of stuff that they can impart knowledge onto the newbies into the business. But no real trend. I'd say sub 20 seems to be where most of my inquiries come from.
And is there a difference how operations works within those smaller businesses to those larger businesses? Obviously, volume and scale is a difference. I get that, but is there anything else that is, specifically for the people listening today in those smaller businesses that they really need to take away from this conversation and think about, as opposed to the plus 20, 30 guys?
I'd say the smaller the organization, the more time I find myself trying to get into the relationships and how things are structured. Owner managed, founder led, whatever you call it. It can be really precious, and that's why certain operational processes sit with them. Actually, they're the face of the business, probably the best person to generate new clients, and that's what they should be doing, and not doing payroll. So like getting into the the dynamics of the people and what they're willing to relinquish, and what they, and sometimes you have to have that conversation with owners and be like, you're telling me that you want to go to 10 head count, so you need to hit these growth milestones, but you're spending 2 hours a day doing admin. It probably doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Cumulatively, you could do a deal and fund an ops exec for your business in due course. And then I'll work to like setting headcount goals and revenue targets to justify the headcount. But that's what I'd say.
Okie dokie. And when you're kind of working, so that's the kind of for the smaller business. With the bigger businesses, that must be a different challenge altogether, though, right? Because just scale and volume comes into play then, right?
Yeah, 100%. And One example is I've done a born implementation, and I've got another one coming up, and I'm on the process of mapping out how recruiters do things. And this is like a 35-person business, 3 divisions, 2 locations. Honestly, you ask all of them the same thing. How do you load a candidate on the database? How do you skill them, tag them? How do you spec? How do you send? They're all doing it so differently.
Mhm.
So I've developed it's built on Excel. It's nothing that fancy, but it's just a process mapping thing that I like to use where I have all the various different people, how you do it. And eventually you find a bit of a trend line. So the biggest difficulty with operations, specifically like the rec tech stuff and the recruiter sales process related stuff, is just the very many different ways of doing it. I think the closer you can bring it to the core of one process, easier. The other complexity when you have the larger teams is rollout thereafter. Like you can build an operational process that's designed with all the right things in mind, but who then is responsible for reinforcing it? Who's responsible for doing the QA checks on processes being done? So part and parcel of that discovery session where I'm looking at roles and responsibilities, like what are you responsible for? I will usually rejig that to be like, right, everyone has someone on top of them that's QAing it. And ultimately it's going to come down to the founder maybe doing a quarterly ops meet, depending on the size, or it's an ops director doing it weekly, checking in. That's probably where it gets more complex as you're bigger, because you're further away from it as an owner. And so you just assume everything's being done properly. And then 2 months go by and you're like, fuck, nothing's happened.
Yeah. And the kind of, is it easier when you're working with a business that has already got an ops person in there already? Is that the kind of, and you're kind of supporting them? Is that the kind of the role that you kind of really want to kind of take on?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I'm developing at the moment is a training program for ops people in recruitment. Basically, the modules will be enable, operate, and improve. So I enjoy nothing more than coaching, mentoring. So after being a recruiter, I was divisional manager. Whilst I was ops manager, I always helped with all the one-to-ones and stuff. So I love the management coaching piece. I love it. It's so good. I enjoy delivering training. So if they've got an ops person, it probably is the best bang for buck, because at least there's not just an investment in solving some operational problems, but there's also an element of training. So you're actually left with someone who's been upskilled. All of my clients actually get a direct comms channel, much to the dismay of my other half. I've got WhatsApp, Slack, Teams. Honestly, and some people message me on a Sunday and stuff to ask for bits and pieces. I don't mind it personally. I'm quite good at just separating work and home anyway, internally in my head, so I don't mind it. But have an ops person who gets stuck, being able to contact someone like myself so that I could just solve that one question, answer that one question, solve that one problem, so they can continue on, so that they're not stood still waiting for me to jump on the weekly call or for the monthly meet. I think that really makes a difference to the folks that have an ops person internally.
Yeah, having someone there that they can kind of just rely on it, no matter what time of the day it is.
Yeah.
And you must have come across some horror stories as well, right? And I'm not looking for specifics or names. Well, no, I am looking for specifics. I'm not looking for names. Let's go with that. But there must be there must be some trends and things that you just don't do this, right? Do not do this. This is just leading to disaster. You must have a couple of those kind of stories or kind of things that you want to share with us.
Do you know one of the, so if I'm doing if I'm engaged, I send over a pre-site visit checklist, and that will be, consultant P&Ls, and if they don't have them, start putting them together. Just general cash flow, just recruitment, LinkedIn usage reports. Like, I always like to see how people pull out usage reports and if they actually remove the unnecessary columns or not, because that just says a lot about how proud they are about the data.
Mm-hmm.
Then I also, if they don't have a list of all their costs and suppliers and they can't pull one together, I'll ask for the bank statement. And one of the exercises that I do sometimes, I've had to do it 3 times in the last 4 months. To be fair, the founder loved it by the end of it. He was like, just who's got time to do this? So I just went through, we're just looking at every single pound note that was coming out of that bank account, then looking for the associated contract. Why was it bought? Is it actually doing what it's meant to be doing? If you don't have a grip of what your supplier cost base looks like, and you can't articulate what each of them is for, that's usually that's, for me, it excites me because I've got loads of work. I can make a real big change here, but it concerns me, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty poor management. But I get it. It happens. Like, over the last few years, there's been the emergence of recruitment technology, the heyday. Oh gosh, everyone making like money hand over fist, 21 and 22. No one was that bothered, really, were they? Are we making more than we're spending? Yes. All right, no problems whatsoever. So I think the market being great, then drop in, led to the need to go through more bank statements for companies over the last few months. But that for me is usually just like a real big red flag. We've got some work to do here. Let's go right back to the front, right back to the bare bones of it. What other horror stuff is there? Honestly, the tech thing at the moment, it's people are. I reckon every week I'm getting WhatsApp saying, "Hey, I've just seen this. What do you think of it?" I think the one this week, by the way, has been Wave. I don't know what's happening with their marketing, but I've had like so many WhatsApp saying, "Do I need to still employ recruiters, or can I just use Wave?" So I need to go check it out personally and get under the hood of that. But like tech is not the answer to every single problem that you have. I think it will definitely help in some situations if it's the right one for what you need. But I just think process is broken down at the moment. Like if you can't articulate how you make a placement from job on to Cando qualified to close to post placement aftercare, I think if you can't articulate that, then you're not going to win with whatever technology you go and do.
It feels very much like kind of the description. Your description of ops is just the kind of the clear up all the shit that's kind of got kind of all out of control. Basically, that sounds like like definition.
That's probably a good way. Yeah, they're going to start calling me the dry cleaner or something when I turn up.
And obviously, this is a marketing podcast, so there must be kind of overlaps with kind of what marketing departments do and the marketing with these kinds of businesses. Can you maybe kind of give us a little kind of insight into how ops and marketing can collab and work together?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, I throw everything into ops. So I actually throw marketing, TA, finance, maybe standalone if it's a contract business, but if it's perm sending, a few invoices per month, then I'd throw it into ops as well. Interesting enough, over the years, there's been an emergence of like marketing within the recruitment agency sector. It's really become a really prominent thing now, to the point where people are hiring their own internal marketing people. Like that was just like never heard of. I remember a few years ago, we for the first time hired a social media person at an agency I was working at. I was the ops manager. Two co-founders. One would not, wouldn't connect the dots between marketing and making money. The other one a little bit more amenable to it. But honestly, the uplift there was on all levels. Like, internally, your staff are like, "Oh yeah, we do look fucking good on LinkedIn. Actually, that job does look better than the other 700 jobs that just got posted because it's got a nice image to it." And then the more experienced recruiters and the proper senior leadership people are like, "Oh, you mean we're sending salary surveys out, and now we're able to send that out to clients, use it as a lead magnet, and now I can call them. Oh, and now I can see how many times they've opened that email." Like, all of that. The transition to that has been amazing. Like, companies like yourself, ThinkinCircles and all the other providers in the space, it's just like there is a real genuine market for it. I think the connection between the two, it comes back to my principles. I think, how is this enabling sales? And you just got to directly articulate that. So this is what we're doing. This is a project we've got going on. This is a bit of work we're doing in marketing. This is how it's going to enable more placements. And here are the steps for it. Yeah. I think that's the main thing, because sometimes cross-functional teams, different departments, end up, if they have one single voice each, it won't work because they've all got their own initiatives. They all want to be the person that's getting a pat on the back in the monthly meeting at the pub, card behind the bar with the owner. But actually, if they all are talking about how it enables placements, recruiters to do well, improve, so on and so forth, I think that's where you get the real good harmony and collective effort to tackle the problems.
Yeah. And before I let you go, Si, have you got any kind of top tips that you would like to kind of share with the audience, whether they're a big business or a small business, a one-man business? What's the kind of a couple of key takeaways?
A couple of key takeaways. Yeah, two. I've got two actually. That's good. So anyone that's out there at the moment thinking about recruitment technology, investing in something, so many of these products overlay in what they do. So you'll have core CRM, outreach, AI, marketing, timesheets. When you're evaluating products, you need to understand which areas they fit into and where the overlap is between what you have already and what they've got out there. Now, before you go out to market to get dazzled and wondered by all these features, you need to document your own processes. And by documenting your own processes and emailing that over to a sales guy and saying, hey, this is what we want to see in the demo, maybe give them 10 minutes at the end to show you all the flashy stuff, because that's what they're paid to do. But at the core of the demo, make sure they're showing you what your process is and how that would work for you. And that same email should just go to all of the salespeople, all of the vendors. And then that way you're comparing apples for apples. And I'd have a spreadsheet, I'd have 3 columns, I'd score them. And that's how I would go about making my decisions. No hearts and minds, just let the numbers help you make the decision. That's one, because rec tech is obviously huge at the moment. Two, I think for all businesses, particularly maybe the ones that are like, I think it's like 4, 5 up to 20. That's where sometimes I notice that handle on cash or so on and so forth becomes a bit murky. I would recommend having a cash flow document that is updated every single month. I mean, I'm not an accountant. I don't give financial advice, but I do know that you need to be making more money than you're spending, and actually knowing what's going to come out when shows that you've just got a real good grip on your business. So have a cash flow doc, get your accountants to do it, get your ops person to do it. They're really simple. I've got some template ones. I'm happy to share with anyone that wants one.
Brilliant. That was amazing. Thank you very much, Si. Obviously, as always, we will include all of your details in the show notes. If anybody wants to know more or get in contact, they can from there. But Si, for now, thank you very much.
Ledge.